Hello, adventurers, and welcome back to the Legend of Kelamentura Omnibus Recap, Part 4. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Adventurers Clan, welcome to the club. My name is David. I am the Dungeon Master / Game Master and creative mind behind Legend of Kelamentura. And thank you for joining us for Part 4. Up until this point, we've been kind of going at a bit of a glacial pace as far as recaps go. We've been doing about 7 sessions per part. I'm going to try and speed that up because, I'm on session 21 now, and we're in 51 at current time of recording. So, I'm going to try and do a bit more of a Danny Carr recap rundown. So, if you want to know what's happened so far, please go back and listen to the other parts, part 1, 2, and 3. I do also have, up to a point, more detailed recaps on the channel as well. I think it goes up to like session. It's in the mid-20s, I believe. So I think what I've already covered is there and all, just slightly more detail. But we're going to do a little bit more of a Danny Carr rapid rundown style. So, last we left off, the party had gone off into the Ice Pick Mountains, had found the hermits that had the Blade of Storm's End, which turned out to be a fallen planetar of Artur. After resolving that, prior to that, they had helped, they'd slaughtered a bunch of Yetis who had took over a logging camp. And on the way back to the town, they had come across a gunsmith in hiding from the dynasty, from the Salazan dynasty, one Baron Matthew Lee, who had fled after creating my world's equivalent of semi-automatic rifles. Up until that point, the best you've had have been single-shot breech loaders or bolt/lever actions. He has got semi-automatic to work and felt guilty about it and fled. Party had returned to Iceborne after having completed all these tasks. Reported in to Brogmere, who was the head of the logging camp, told him about everything else that had gone on. Went down to the docks, spoke to the dock master, harbor master, Goliath called Rhodey, about the sea serpents. I'd asked some questions. He had told them, right, if you're going to go sea serpent hunting, go speak to the crew of the Audacity. They're a Menturian naval crew turned fishermen. They'd be the ones I'd want watching my back. And when the party then asked about magical weapons or tools as well, we don't really have that much of a thing here, but maybe go check up at the keep. So the party sent word up to the keep for Desmond Thrain, so that we're looking to have a talk. Messenger comes back, Thrain's available to speak whatever time. Party go up, speak to Thrain, who is buried in paperwork and is living vicariously through the party. Listens eagerly to the tales and what they've got up to. When the party asks for magic items, so there's specifically like rings of water walking or cast-off armor, because a lot of the party do wear heavy armor. Desmond Thrain summons Jeffries, the very old elven manservant, butler of the castle, to go off, and he'd be the one who would know what these things are, and gives the party pretty much whatever they need as a loner. Helps them research into sea serpents, which from Rhodey they learned what the creatures were, and spend a night drinking and having the crack with Lord Thrain. The next morning, they get up, head off into board the Audacity. That night, Bjorn heads down to the forges, the open forge down by the docks, and enlists the blacksmith Dean there to make some sort of a sea serpent pike with a hook and chains to try and like Captain Ahab whaling type implements, which Dean is more than happy to do. Goes off, does that overnight. The next morning, party get up, collect their weapons and gear, board the ship, and it's a few days of sailing out to where these creatures were seen. On the voyage, the party the party speaks with the crew and learns that the captain of the ship, one Tamon Broadback, actually, a lot of the crew actually served in the war alongside Lord Desmond Thrain's father, Percival, in a sort of a special operations, behind-the-scenes, sneaky-breaky type stuff. So some war stories are exchanged. A few days of travel and crack along those lines. The party come under attack not long after midday by a couple of sea serpents who were sea serpents and furies. A ferocious battle ensues with Achilles and Ariadnae both feeling death saving throws at the hands of the sea serpents and the furies, taking a vicious beating. But ultimately, the sea serpents and furies succumb to the might of the party, and the crew of the Audacity there wiped out with relative ease. I say relative ease. Two the party got downed. Ariadne lost death saving throws to one of the harpies, and Achilles was almost murdered, outright murked by one of the sea serpents. But the party prevailed, and upon that returned to Iceborne once more. Received a hero's welcome from the people of the families of the fishermen who had, obviously some fishermen had died, had been killed off by these sea serpents. So received the gratitude of the townsfolk. Once more returned to the castle, spoke with Desmond Thrain, who, because at this point Thrain is kind of friends with the party and also knows that, is also childhood friends with Enya, or Duchess, as the party have taken to calling her. After returning to the town, Lowe goes off, speaks with the giants, and they begin building a temple to Elistrade down by the docks. There's some spaces, where some warehouses were, and because the party has done a good bit of help, Desmond 3 and they can go ahead and start building a temple. Titus, after the sea serpent battle, the party of course managed to do a bit of harvesting. Some scales, some hides, some teeth, and Titus actually managed to get the breath weapon gland of one of the sea serpents. He goes back to the open forge and enlists the help of the smiths there to create a wand of pyrotechnics and a helm of cold breathing. Kind of think of like a potion of fire breathing, but as a helmet. And it does cold breathing. After that, they go back to speak to Thrain, who kind of then directs them back towards the plot and the reason they came up here, which is to track down the Defiant. Tells them that the Defiant had come through some time previously. Obviously, he didn't know they were the Defiant. They didn't advertise themselves as such. Cults that tend to advertise themselves as death cults don't get very far in the world. But he gives them information as to they've chartered some of the icebreaker ships, journeyed up to the frozen north, came through twice, once about 4 months prior, and then again 2 months prior, both separate voyages, but both made on the same ship. And after that, they head back down to the tavern, and drinks, crack are had. They then spend a few days. Spend the next few days, kind of bit of downtime, prep for this journey back north, even further. Doing a bit of praying, research, and what have you. And the party then turn their attention to investigating in earnest the activities that have gone on around Iceborne. Achilles goes off. Well, sorry. Getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Where are we? Yes. The party head off into town. They make their way to the King's Head, whereby they ask around, garner some information. Lowe, Achilles, and Duchess meet up with the crew of one of the icebreaker ships, the crew of the Wily Goat. As such, because they knew the Desmond Thrain told them that the Wily Goat is the only ship that's really in dock at the moment, and one of the crew was the brother of one of the crew of the Dragon Turtle, which the Dragon Turtle was the icebreaker ship that the Defiant were using. Dragon Turtle is not in port at the moment, so therefore the brother of one of the crew is probably your best bet. So they go off to the tavern, get a bit of information, and ultimately charter that ship to take them up to the wastes. Creve, who is the brother, Black Dragonborn, says that, yeah, my brother was wasn't quite himself when I did speak to him, but definitely around. If I see him, I'll be speaking to him. But with passage secured, Titus, Bjorn, and Ariadnae have headed to the docks and go back down to the Audacity, which is their friends down there now. Speak to them, and in the process of doing so, actually meet another human sailor by the name of Matthew. He was a former crew member of the Dragon Turtle and had lost his post on the Dragon Turtle after he had when the last time they were in dock, he got into the tavern, got into a fist fight, got injured, and was recovering when the ship set sail again. But he says that on the voyage, that yes, the Defiants were there, these weird members. Kind of kept themselves, were quiet, did some rituals that were a bit weird, fed well. But he did notice that Mehen and the officers didn't quite seem themselves. Something was a bit off with them after they had met with the ones who would flash in the cash. Party, after gathering all this information, they reconvene at the Harbour Master's office, take maps, getting maps together and planning the route. Excuse me. And decided, yep, we've got passage secured in a couple of days. So yeah, we're all set now, really, to go forth. After doing this, they intend to return to Last Hearth to rest up and go back to spend the night there. But on the return journey from the docks, they come across two figures in an alleyway who've been beaten within an inch of their life. One of them, younger male elf, they recognize to be Adran, who is one of the tavern workers, barkeepers in the Last Hearth. And the other that Bjorn recognizes as a wine merchant who he had previous business with. The wine merchant is in a bit worse state. He's completely unconscious, but Adran is able to communicate briefly. Party come to their aid, give him a little bit of healing, speak to Adran, who says that he was out for a walk and he overheard a beating. He overheard some commotion in this alleyway, came to investigate, saw the merchant getting the shit kicked out of him, tried to intervene, and also got the shit kicked out of him. The only description he really gave was that the man who had grabbed him had really bright green eyes. That was the only he could see with the mask that he was wearing before he got beaten bloody. So the party then take these two to the temple for healing, bring them into the infirmary. Adran is brought in. He's doing okay. He's had a beating, but he's doing okay. He's basically now in bed rest. The merchant is still unconscious, but not doing terribly well. They search him for effects, and they find a billfold that contains identification papers and membership of a guild. The Merchants Traders Guild of Vesta for one Dennis Smith. And after they find the billfold, they see a little pouch falls out of a pocket within the corner of the robes, which they, upon searching, contains trace amounts of sood, which is an illicit substance. The rest up that night, go back the next morning. Adran, sitting up, he's a bit more at himself. Still sore, but he's recovering. His sister is there with him. The merchant's still not really conscious, so Bjorn casts Lesser Restoration on him, which brings him back quite violently. Through their questioning, he further corroborates Adran's report that one of the individuals had very bright green eyes, rough hands, and spoke with an accent, like an Amberino accent, the Republic of Amberino. Says, yep, doesn't I? Yes, I know. And then when questioned about the sood, kind of goes a bit stum and says, well, yeah, I use it. I've never dealt it. I've never smuggled it. I know it's illicit. I shouldn't have had it in the first place, but I've only ever used it. And he spent longer than he intended to in Iceborne, or this podunk town, as he called it. And my supply dwindled. However, a bunch of sailor. I came across a bunch of guys found me using it in an alleyway. Told me they could hook me up. So we agreed to meet in the old quarry north of the town. That's where the deal was done. And they offered me a line of credit, which I forgot to pay, and then they caught up with me, and when I didn't pay, did this to me. So the party have now got a bit more information to go on. So that night, so after this, Achilles goes off and tries to make contact with the Thieves Guild. Or looks like, because he kind of assumed, well, it's a up-and-coming town, village. There's got to be someone here. There's got to be a Thieves Guild of some sort. Does, if actually track down, kind of gets a rough idea of where the guild entrance would be, but before he can find it, finds a blade in his back, finds a blade held against his back, and a figure in thieves' can't saying, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Conversation is had with a member of the Thieves Guild, known as the Avant, whereby the Thieves Guild says, yes, we're aware of the trade going on, we know the deals are being done on the quarry, but we don't have any more information than that. However, if you're going to look into it, we're more than welcome to work alongside you. So, after this, the party kind of splits up further, with Ariadnae and Titus returning to the open forge and helping Dane to kind of speed up the crafting process. The Wand of Pyrotechnics and Helm of Cold Breathing are completed. Lowe goes back down to the docks and helps the giants with the construction of the temple. While he's going down that direction, he stops off the open forge with Ariadnae and Titus. And the dwarves, Dane, Vistra, and Flint, the dwarven brothers, or the trio that run the open forge, tell Lowe that the council that Desmond III has been in contact with the council of Mentura, who have agreed to arm and armor the giants, and the dwarves have got the contract to do so. In exchange for them agreeing to basically, you guys are going to sit here and defend Iceborne and be part of the defense. And it's like, oh, happy days. And then he goes off, tells the giants the good news, and he spends the evening with them. Bjorn, Duchess, and Achilles that night head off to the quarry to try and do some investigation of their own to figure out if they can catch any deals in progress or find any trace of it. And while they don't find anyone there, they do indeed find trace amounts of sood in some places. Will actually be relatively fresh. This is not like stuff that's gone off, so they're all, we know the people have been here. And leave content to the fact that, well, we can maybe come back another night and keep a watch, try and catch these people in the act. The next morning, the next day, Titus and Ariadnae at dawn with Dane have completed their labours. The blacksmithing has been completed. The rest of the party has been resting, have had a long rest. The trio of forgers are looking forward to a well-earned rest, and then remember, oh shit, there's a festival today. I don't want to miss any of that. So Dane goes off, brings back this earthenware jug and 3 cups, offers some to Titus and Ariadne, and says, yeah, this is a dwarven concoction called Bright Eye. It's technically illegal, but if you don't say anything, I won't. Then they'll drink it, which... it's basically dwarven 5-hour energy. It tastes horrible. It's medicinal. It's herbal. It's lamp oily in taste and smell. But it'll keep you awake for 12 hours, which it does. Staves off exhaustion. So the party then reconvene in the town square after having washed and get ready. And there's a festival, big festival in the town, kind of a harvest festival. The party at this point then they are introduced to a couple of other NPCs. They see Desmond in ceremonial attire coming down from the castle. They also see 2 other individuals, an older woman and an older man, who Duchess and Duchess recognizes as Colette Thrain and Desmond's stepfather, Conrad Thrain IV, both of whom were barons and baronesses of Arakel's ward in Terran. The nobles have an escort of the Terran Harpers, who are elite soldiers, and Conrad has a body. Conrad and Colette also have a orc bodyguard in gleaming metal armor that is battle worn but very well presented. So the nobles make their way to a stage that has been erected in the town square, gives a stirring speech, sets off the festival. So a whole bunch of festival games kick off. The usual arm wrestling, pie eating, dodging rotten fruits, all that sort of festival fun and games with the party, which a whole bunch of the party participate in to various levels of entertainment and joy. That concludes, and then after the morning's revelry, the lunch bells are sounded, and the party are invited to a luncheon with the nobles, which they arrive at, and are found that the nobles have kind of taken over the last hearth and are got a private table with a nice feast set forth. Excuse me. Sorry, my breakfast is repeating on me. And at the luncheon, they find that the nobles have been joined by two other individuals. One, Drevish von Smith, who was introduced as a nobleman and a man of great repute from the Salazan dynasty. And once again meet the Republican merchant Jeremiah Doyle in his now trademark grey suit and coat. A luncheon is had, the party kind of rub shoulders and have conversation and carouse with the nobles, kind of get in with them. And at this point, Achilles, who had previously, in dealing with mages, had picked up this brooch. This defiant brooch is this crimson teardrop ruby. Had that in his pocket, threw it out onto the table, and kind of made the accusation that though there's some of this table is a cult member, and made an insight check onto the nobles to see if anybody reacted. No one did, or no one. Achilles didn't pick up on anything. Was able to pass it off as a joke, but Conrad took a bit of an interest. Going, well, where the hell did you get this from, Achilles? Caused a little bit of, oh, you're making jokes. Why are you making that joke? Why? And Conrad started his own interrogation, but Achilles was able to convince them that no, genuinely, that we found this. We're investigating them. I just wanted to see if any of you would react. Titus, who was it? And then after this. Titus has an encounter with the soldiers, the escorts, the leader of whom recognizes Titus, doesn't recognize Titus, but sees Titus bearing a legionary tattoo. The two of them have a conversation. They are both veterans of the recent war between the dynasty and the Council of Mentura that happened around about 2 decades prior. They both served there. So old soldiers have a conversation, and the sergeant effectively speaks to Titus and says that you served in that unit. Well, then you should probably know that your old unit commander, Jackson Blackwater, he's not doing well. He's ill. He probably hasn't got much time left, so if you wanted to go see him, I would head off and do that, kind of foreshadowing Titus's exit from the campaign. After lunch, the party then head back out again to continue the festival celebrations. As they exit the tavern, Achilles is kind of called to the side by the member of the event that he had met previously, who tells him that the Thieves Guild has been driven out of one of the major cities in the dynasty, Port Moor, which is the city right next to Achilles' hometown. The Thieves Guild has been driven out by another underground force, and the reports coming out from the Thieves Guild say that there's a link to Jeremiah Doyle. Doyle is somehow involved in this. So he asks, can the party keep Doyle and his crew here busy and engaged while he goes off and investigates the ship? After that, Achilles goes off, speaks to the party, tells them what the crack is. And he then says, you know what, let's put on a spectacle. Turns to the nobles, you know what? Why don't we put in a bit of a spectacle? We've done a bit of good for this town. Why don't we do a bit of a sparring match, huh? How does that sound? And all the party members agree. So we have a bunch of duels kind of go off. Achilles goes up to Doyle, challenges him to a friendly, in quotes, duel, who Doyle is taken aback and kind of looks him up and down and goes, you know what, it's been a while since I've had a duel. Why the hell not? And the rest of the party kind of battle various members of the crew of the Wily Goat. And Lowe kind of then goes off, finds the hill giants. Look at this test of skill and prowess ensues over the next while as various members duke it out back and forth, with most of the party members coming off, pretty much all the party members coming off very well in their duel, defeating their opponents. But Achilles, in his battle against Doyle, quite quickly realizes that while the Republican merchant has a bit of a limp and uses a cane, when it comes to it, is actually quite a formidable opponent, using his cane with great effect against Achilles, but also revealing that he has some arcane prowess, which ultimately results in Achilles being knocked unconscious. During the fight, Duchess, who didn't participate in any of the battles directly, was kind of there in a cleric form, looking after her friends, giving them healing where she needed to. Realized that a number of individuals in the crowd were watching her party members quite intently, and recognized that these were members of Doyle's crew, Doyle's ship. So with that knowledge, after the fight, the party kind of reconvenes, wounds, licking their wounds, patting each other in the back, and bonds being formed. Duchess reveals that, yeah, by the way, during all of that, a bunch of Doyle's crew members were watching us. And they all look over and see Jeremiah Doyle, who has been tended to by members of his own crew for the wounds he sustained fighting Achilles. Bunch of them seem to be in conversation. A few glances towards the party, kind of go, yeah, debriefing, going, yeah, this is how these guys all fight. So with that knowledge and the sort of slight sense of unease, the party once more go to the last hearth to kind of rest up and brace themselves for the evening's festivities. And while resting, they are joined by the member of the Avant, who had gone off and had actually successfully snuck aboard Doyle's ship, found Doyle's office, and had found letters and a code book, and enlisted the party's help to decode the letters. So to that end, right before this happened, Titus announced that he was going to head off, go back. He says, yeah, I've had fun, but I think I'm going to head on now, and I'm going to go see this guy Blackwater. I haven't seen him for a while, and yeah, leaves him with his tea recipe, because at this point Titus has got a knack for making tea. He bestows upon the party his herbalism kit and his tea recipe, which is water plus leaf plus heat equals tea. So Titus leaves the party. The player doesn't, however. The player had some scheduling issues prior and hadn't really had a chance to be as involved as he wanted, and kind of felt disconnected with Titus. So he left and brought in a new player, a Tiefling Bard, by the name of Baron Bartholomew Aloysius de Guzman Ulysses Yarrow. Of course, nice multi-barreled noble name. So he comes in as the party is joined by the member of the Avant, who brings in the letter and the codebook. So, Achilles and Lowe then decide that they're going to head off, leave the tavern, try to keep Doyle distracted and busy while the party goes through the letters. Make sure if anything happens, Doyle doesn't run off. So Lowe, he takes off through the side streets and goes down to the docks to where the Doyle's ship, the Brass Bell, is. So he goes down, manages to hide himself, and keeps an eye on the ship. To kind of keep an eye on the ship, and if there's any sign that the ship is going to leave or take off, he's going to find a way to slow them down. And Achilles then decides he's going to try and follow Doyle at a distance, keep an eye on him. Oh, excuse me. Keep an eye on a distance. And during this stealth attempt, he is actually perceived by Doyle and the crew, but doesn't realize it until one of Doyle's crew members tries to tackle him off of the rooftops. But of course, that ultimately, once that happens, realizing he's been rumbled, Doyle turns, sees him on the rooftop, and ushers him down for a conversation. The two of them have this double entendre conversation where Achilles can tell Doyle knows something's up. He's not quite himself. He's a bit aggressive. There's an edge to his voice. There's a tension in his body and his shoulders, and the rest of the crew are looking at Achilles like, we know you've done something. Achilles tries to play it coy, but, realizes I might get into a significant fight here. At which point, Doyle steps forth, uses his arcane abilities to cast suggestion upon Achilles and tell him to go take a walk, which he does. He feels a save. So he then, having been distracted, heads off into the woods on a nice long walk. Meanwhile, Lowe is down at the docks, keeping an eye. He ultimately sees the approach of Doyle and sees a flurry of activity on the deck and realizes, oh god, these guys are about to leave. Back in the tavern, the Avant and the party members are able to decode parts of the letter, which talks about... Let me see if I can go back. Mentions the dragon turtle icebreaker, calling it a loose end. It talks about aiding the Defiant in their goals, makes reference to a necromancer called the Undying Prince, red dragons, some sort of spy, some sort of international spy figure called the Eye, and talks about taking out the Defiant, taking out the Avant in Port Muir. All these tidbits of information and plot hooks and all this stuff has fallen into the party's lap, and they're kind of... The party are now realizing, while disjointed, that, yeah, something real shady is going on with Doyle. He's not a good person. Excuse me. So, the tavern party, having uncoded what they believe to be sufficient evidence, go off in search of the Thrain family, present that to them, and go, listen, something's going on with Doyle. We need to find a way to stop him. We think he might be fleeing. We need to stop him from doing so and bring him in for interrogation because we think he's linked to some shit going on in Port Muir. There's some other shit stuff going on. We need to stop him. And the Thrains go, okay, that's concerning. Let's go have a conversation. So they begin to head off. Meanwhile, Achilles at this point has, Achilles is gone. He's now in the woods. And Doyle returns to the ship, begins barking some orders, and Lowe sees the ship preparations are really picking up. So, at that point, in an attempt to stop it going down, to stop anything, he casts heat metal on the ship's anchor, which glows and begins to char the side of the wood, which the crew try to stop from trying to disengage the anchor. At which point, a plate armor-clad figure rushes out from under the ship, rushes out from the hold, sees the glowing anchor, manages to knock out the retaining pin, and it falls into the ocean. He then leads a group, this armored figure, leaves the ship, tries to search the docks for anything untoward, and sees that something's not quite right where Lowe is hiding, because when Lowe was hiding, he had managed to cast a bit of an illusion to conceal himself. This armored figure picks up on this, and the group begin to approach. Seeing the group approach, Lowe realizes he's rumbled and casts bonfire on the sails of the ship and just cries out, "Let there be light." And with that, we'll end part 4 of my recap, and we'll pick up with part 5 in a little bit. Thank you all very much for joining me so far, adventurers. I know I said I wanted to go a little bit faster. Hopefully you guys are still able to keep up and follow. So, for you guys, it'll be a while. I don't know how long, I don't know when these will all get uploaded. Hopefully one after the other. So, I'll see you guys in part 5. Thank you very much for watching.